Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me? And can you see my screen? Just put it in the chat if you can hear the audio and you can see my screen. Hmm. Kumi, can you hear me? Okay, fantastic. Okay, so all right, so let's go ahead and get started then, so we don't have a lot of time. So last time, today we're going to go over assignment 5. We'll also go over buttons versus links. We haven't really talked about links, but they're very similar to buttons. We'll talk about that today. Then we'll talk more about loops, and then we'll maybe get into a little bit of math, some basic math, and then we'll introduce assignment 6. So I've not had a chance to grade your assignment 5, um, but your assignment 5 will be graded this week. I'm just focusing on the assignments and getting you guys up to the first project. The first project is very big. So when I introduce that project, that's when I'll have time to go back probably and grade the assignments. But I'll try to grade assignment 5 and 4 this week. So this is assignment 5. Um, for this assignment, you just had to use what you learned last class to create a praise form. And the form should start by showing your name. Then every time you click on the praise button, it will add whatever praise you choose. In this case, I chose hallelujah. So every time I click on praise, it adds the text hallelujah to the original text. So the original text should not change. And every time you click on the praise button, it should add a praise word. So this was due in the portal, in the student portal by today at noon. And it's always going to be assignments are due Saturday at noon. And so thank you to everyone who attended last week and everyone who's diligently working on these assignments. I know it's time consuming. I know you guys have school, but this is going to make you very capable of taking over the media. Anytime there's any kind of issue, if I'm not able to attend, that any of you guys will be able to take over and know exactly what to do. So this is going to bring you closer and closer to that. So I think the skills are generally very powerful. They're going to help you in your everyday like work, no matter what you're doing in school. It's very, very useful to know HTML. There's a lot of use cases for it. So anyway, this is assignment 5. I hope everyone was able to finish assignment 5. If you have any issues, does anyone have any questions on assignment 5? Or did anyone have any issues on assignment 5? Okay, so no one had any questions on assignment 5, no one had any issues, then we'll go ahead and proceed. So you can always contact me if you had an issue. So last time we talked about when a button is used on an element and you click on the button, it adds a question mark to the address of the page. So last time we looked at that. And we asked why that was. And last time we explained that this is because in HTML, a button is meant to submit data inside a form to the server. So by default, the behavior of a button is to try and submit something to the server. So last time we saw that we can also use an input element to create the same effect as a button by adding a special attribute to the input element. Does anyone remember what that attribute is? So if we have an input element instead of a button, does anyone remember how we make the input element behave like a button? Uh, Ife, do you remember from last week? How do we make an input element behave like a button? What attributes do we have to add to the input element? Let me just bring up the code. Okay, let's see. Let's say we have this code. Let me just make it a little bit large. And we want to say input. And let's just call it value equals go. Oh, we don't need to do anything. So, okay, how do we make this input behave like a button? Can anyone tell me? And appear like a button also. So if we run this code, right now I give the name of the code. I can save it as, let me just quickly run it. Let me just save it as, am I gonna save it as, let's just call it today's, or let me just call it, yeah, 3:30 input .html. Save that. Let me just quickly run it and show everyone. Ifas saying, do you use the form and input element? It's close. Let me show you what I mean. So if I have this, now let me just go to the code that I'm running, 3:30 input.html. Okay, very good. So this is the code right now that I'm running. So you can see that right now, this is all that it's showing. How do I make this behave like a button? Does anyone remember how I make it look like a button? Add a count value. No, not a bad guess. So the way you make an input to behave like a button is to give it a type attribute. Type equals button. So once you give it that type attribute, button is spelled with 2 T's, and I save, now if I refresh, this input should no longer look like an input. It should look like a button. There you go. So that's how we change it to behave like a button. When we have an input element, if we want it to behave like a button, all we have to do is add the type attribute of button. Tell it type equals button, and then that's how it behaves like a button. So now the input element behaves like a button. Okay, very good. So that was a review of last week. Everyone should know how to do that already from last week. Okay, so let's go on to so that's how we make an input button add like an input element act like a button. So now we know that a button can change the address of a page. So is it possible now to make a button that only changes the address of a page? So I'll just ask that question. Do you think it's possible to make an input element or a button that only changes the address of the page? We see that it adds, it changes the address by default as like an after effect. Let me just go back to our example. We can see that whenever we click on go, here's the address of the page, inputs.330 input.html. When we click on go, and in this example actually doesn't do anything. Let me see if I can make it do that. Let's see. I think for an input, we have to change the type equals submit to make it actually behave like a typical button. So it looks like a button if we call it type button, but if we want it to behave like a typical button, we have to give it the type is equal to submit. Now let's refresh. It still looks like a button. Now when we click on go, oh, did it save? Let's see. Oh, there's no form. My mistake. So there has to be a form in order for the input to do that. Okay, now let's save and run it. And now let's see what happens. Yeah, see now the question mark pops up at the end of the address. So hopefully everyone can see that question mark that's appearing every time you run the code. In the very beginning, it's not there. And then as soon as we click on go, that question mark will pop up. So hopefully everyone can see that. Okay, so that's how we make an input element behave like a button. So how do we make an input element or a button only change the address? You'll notice that we don't have to have a form at all if we use a button. So if we have just a button by itself, if we just have a button by itself, like this, we don't have to give it a type or anything.
No. Wait.
Make sure your microphone is on mute if you don't have a question. So the button, if we have just a regular button and it says go, we don't have to have any kind of special attribute. By default, it's going to try to submit a form. So if I refresh this, it looks exactly the same, notice. And again, it's trying to add, let me just make sure it's clear. Whenever I click on this button, go, it actually, because it's not inside of a form. So the button also needs to be inside of a form to do that. Let me just, the button needs to be inside of a form to do that. So now that the button is inside of a form and we refresh, and now we click on go, we see that it adds that question mark. So my question is, can we create a button that only changes the address? So it's changing the address a little bit by adding that question mark, but is there a way to make a button that only changes the address? So yes, there is. That's the answer to that. We'll look at how we can do that now, how to make a button that only changes the address and takes us to a new page. So here's the code. Let me just move this out of the way. So here's the code for how to create a button that only takes us to a new page. So I want everyone to go ahead and create an HTML file and give it a name, page1.html. So just follow the example on this slide. Create an HTML file, call it page1.html. Once you've created the file, enter the code you see on this slide, and then run it and tell me what happens. So just create a simple button, and then for the attribute, give it on click, and then set the attribute on click equal to location.href equals http://google.com. So just copy this code, make it look like, notice the http://google.com is in single quotes, but everything in the on click is inside of double quotes. So I want your on click attribute. It always has to be in double quotes if it's an on click. Well, I think it can be, but just in our case, we'll always use double quotes for the on click. And then anything that's inside of that has to be in quotes, we'll use single quotes. So the address of the href has to be in single quotes. So go ahead and copy this code and enter it into your HTML file and tell me what you get. Tell me what happens. So maybe we'll have Kumi, are you able to share your screen?
No, I'm on my phone.
Oh, you don't have the laptop?
Well, Bukumi said that she does give me a laptop, and she said I could use it. So I'll log in right now.
Yes, use the laptop. Go ahead and log in, and then make sure you create an HTML document, and then enter the code on this slide into that document, and then run it and tell me what happens. Let's have someone quickly demonstrate. Ife, are you able to run this? Okay. Moyi, are you able to run this? Moyi, are you able to run this? Are you on your phone? Or are you able to? Are you on a laptop? You're on your phone. Okay. Wow. You guys should be on your laptops when for the class, just because it's very important for you guys to be able to watch and also practice as we go along. I know for both of you, for Ife and Moyi, I know it's very easy for you, but you know, I still just for the class to be interactive, I want people to be demonstrating how to do stuff so everyone can know what's going on. Okay, that's fine. I'll go ahead and write it. Um, I'll wait for Kumi to get his laptop, and then in the meantime, I'll go ahead and write it up. Let me see. So, okay. So this is the code. Let me just go ahead and modify it. So we have the button, and then we just add an attribute of onClick. Oh, and then I'm writing I am a button. That's right. I'm just creating, I'm saying, I'm changing the title of the button to I am a button. That's fine. And then I want the onClick attribute. Oops. OnClick equals location dot href, and href stands for HTTP or a hypertext reference. That's what href stands for, in case you're wondering. And then we're going to get the href address http :/ google.com. Okay. So that's the code. Button on click equals location.href equals http :/ google.com. I don't need this space at the end, but I like to put this space so I know that it's separate from the on click, that this quote is separate from the double quote. Anyway, so let me go ahead and save this and run it. Very good. Very good. Thank you, Brogbinga. That's very helpful. So where do you go? Okay, Kumi, go ahead and share your screen real quick. Let me make you the host. Hold on. So are you on the laptop right now? Are you logged into the meeting? Kumi, are you on your laptop? Okay, so then let me make you the host. Go ahead and share your screen. Yes, log into the Zoom meeting on the laptop. Yes, log into the Zoom meeting on the laptop. Yeah. Um, so, okay, when you log into the Zoom meeting on your laptop, let me know, then I'll make you the host on the laptop so you can share your screen on the laptop. But obviously right now, if you're on your phone, yes, you're on your phone, you can't log into you can't share your screen. I thought that's what you meant when you said you're on your laptop already. Okay, so let me go ahead and take back the host. Let me share my screen again. Okay, so this is what the code would look like. Let me know as soon as you're ready, Kumi, and I'll have you share your screen. So this is what the code would look like, and I'll go ahead and save it. Now I'll run it by just open up my web browser. So here it is, and then let me refresh. So it says I am a button, and then when I just want to get rid of that question mark. I am a button. When I click on the button, let's see what happens. Oh, did it do anything? No, it didn't do anything. Let me see. Did I call it? Is it the same file? Inputs.html. Let me just double check the name of the file. Let me double check the name of the file. I'll save. Button on click equals location.href equals http://google.com. We don't actually even need this form for this example. We don't really need the form. So let me just simplify it. And then let me refresh. Okay. Very good. So it should take you to google.com when it works correctly. So let's go back. When you click on the button, it takes you to google.com because that's what you're setting the page address to be. So this is how you can set the address of a page with a button. So we're using a button and we're basically using it to change the address of a page. So we click on the button and it takes us to google.com. So that's how that should function. And everyone should be able to get that to work. If you're on a laptop, you can just demonstrate it and test it yourself. If you're on a phone, then whenever you have time, please practice it on your laptop. Okay, so let's go ahead and okay, Kumi, it looks like okay. You want to do okay, I'll make you the host right now. Let me see. Okay, you're the host now. So you can go ahead and share your screen. Fantastic. Okay, let me just move your screen to the so everyone can see what's going on. Let me okay, never mind, go ahead. Okay, so create an HTML file. Very good, Bugbenga, thank you. So uh okay, how do you create an HTML file? Do you remember how to do that?
No. Hold on. It's echoing.
Yeah, turn off the audio on your phone.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Okay.
can. The audio on your phone is still on if there's an echo.
Okay. Hold on. All right.
Okay, so do you remember how to create an HTML document?
No.
Okay, so open up Notepad. Just open up Notepad. Very good. Perfect. And then in Notepad, um, just call like open up a new file. Um, yeah, and then type out the code that you saw in the slide. So do you still have the slide? Oh, let me give everyone a link to the slides. Hold on. Let me give everyone a link to the slides. Just a minute. I always forget that. If anyone can remind me of that, that'd be very helpful. I always forget to give everyone a link to the slides now because I'm not doing the QR code thing. So I always forget. Let me just quickly find that. Okay, let me see. Okay, so let me put it in the chat. So everyone go ahead and check the meeting chat for the link to the slides. Let me just make sure. Yeah, there it is. Okay, I just sent everyone the link to the slides. So Kumi, go ahead and you can access the slides now. Yeah, very good. And now go to the code. Yes, that the next page. Next page. Next page. That button, yeah. Go ahead and copy that code. Copy the whole thing. Copy that code. Nope, not the page one part, but that's fine. Let's delete it after the fact. Okay, go back to Notepad and then paste it. Get rid of the page one and delete that line. The top line, delete that first line. Very good. Okay. Now, notice how your quotes, because you copied it from PowerPoint, the quotes are not text quotes. So it's a special character that I can tell right by looking at it that if you run this, it's going to give you something that's messed up. Anyway, go ahead and save it and run it. Let me see what happens. I'll show everyone what happens. So go ahead and save this and name the file page1.html. Go ahead and save it. Uh,
They
so
had,
yeah, to
huh?
save it, go to File and then Save. And then it'll ask you to give it a name. Make sure the name is page one. No capital, just lowercase page one dot HTML. And make sure the type of the document is all files. So notice how the type says yes. Change it to just all files. Very good. Now save that on the desktop. No, you saved it in documents. Anyway, that's fine. Okay, it's fine if it's in documents. That's okay. Open up your documents folder. Yeah, go to the documents folder and look for the file that you just created called page1.html. So you have a lot of stuff in your documents. Yeah, organize it by name or actually organize it by date. That'd be easier, but that's fine. Organize it by name and scroll down to the P's. Yeah. How about organize it by date? Organize it by date so that you see the most recent thing first.
Yeah.
Get rid of that check mark though. Notice how you have that check mark enabled. Yeah, get rid of that. Very good. Now click on date modified. Yes, you see it now? Page1.html near the bottom. That file. Yeah. Page one. You see that page one? Oh,
No.
go up, go up. Yes,
Yeah.
that page one, yes. So that's your HTML document. Now, because it's an HTML document, you can just double click on it to run it. Very good. So that's how you create it. Very good. Okay, now go ahead and test it by clicking on the button. And notice it doesn't work. The reason why it doesn't work is go back to your code. It's in Notepad. Notepad should still be open, yes. Yeah, that's the code. The reason it doesn't work is because the quotations, the quotation marks are not regular quotation marks. That's why it's very important that you save the file as text only because the double quotes from PowerPoint or from Google Slides are not like standard double quotes in just like plain text. So we just want plain text double quotes. So change that first double quote after the on-click equal sign. Yeah, change that to just a regular double quotes. And you'll notice that it looks different when you change it to a regular double quote. Delete that and make it a double quote. Very good. That's the standard plain text double quote symbol. So do the same for the single quote after href. Just do yeah. And then do that. That's a single quote. And then the last one is a double quote. Perfect. Now save it again. Yeah. So save the whole document, file save. Yeah, now you don't have to, the same name should work. And now open up, go back to the web browser and refresh. Go back to that web browser that's open. The web page should already be open. There it is. Go back. You see page one at the top? Yeah. Refresh. Oh, okay. Refresh it first to make sure it's, and now try it again. Very good. So now it takes you to google.com. So now it's working as expected. That's because the code is correct. So, okay, very good. So go ahead and stop sharing your screen. Good job. So that's how you create an HTML document. Um, let me, very good. Let me reclaim host. Let me share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Okay, very good. So now let me go ahead and move on to so that's how you create a simple button that acts like basically it acts like a link. So it takes you to Google, uh, which basically makes it behave like a link. So now there's another way to make a button behave like a link. Let's take a look at that now. So go ahead and make this, write up this code. Um, so remember that the default behavior of a button is to try and submit a form. So we talked about that in the beginning. By default, a button wants to submit a form. That's why it's adding that question mark at the end when you click on it. So knowing that, we can actually put a button inside of a form and tell the form to change the address of the page. So now we're telling the form what the address changed to, not the button. So it's a little bit tricky, a little bit different. But um, I think we talked about it when we did introduce forms, but maybe not. So anytime where we have a form, we can actually set an attribute of the form called the action. So by using the action attribute of the form, we can tell the form to perform a certain action. So like visit a new page. So you can tell a form to do many things, many different actions, but for now, we'll just set the action attribute of the form to a new page. So go ahead and enter this code into the same, now make a new HTML file, call it page2.html. So do the same process, but now call this file page2.html, and then enter this code into that file and then run it. And then tell me what you see. So tell me what happens when you're able to run it. Um, okay, Kumi, do you want to share your screen again and run this code? Okay, let me make you the host. There should be a faster way of doing this. Okay, you're the host now, I think. Go ahead and share your screen. No, let me make you the host. Oh, I forgot to, I shared the wrong, sorry about that. I shared the wrong, I shared it to the wrong, you have two different names in the Zoom meeting. That's why. Okay, now I should be able to share the screen. All right, very good. So yes. So now go ahead and type up the code for the new it's very similar to the old code. So you can copy the old code and even just use that as a template. Very good. Now get rid of the remember, do the same thing. Get rid of the double quotes. Actually, this time, get rid of the entire on click. So for this version, there's no on click at all. So get rid of that entire attribute. So on click, all of that, you can delete it. Everything after button up to that the closing bracket, you can delete it. No, everything after on click. Yes, everything, all of that, yep, you can delete. Except, yeah, include the double quote. Yep, delete that. Go ahead. And then now put everything inside of a form. So surround everything in form tags. So you want to wrap that inside of a form tag. Do you remember how to do that? How to surround everything inside of a form? Okay, so in that case, to surround everything inside of a form, go ahead and create a new, put the button on a new line. Is it on a new line already? Go to the first line of the document. Go to the first line. Okay, go to the very beginning. Hit enter. And now go back to the first line. First line. That's the second line. Go back to the first line now. That's the first line. Yes. Now type open bracket form. No, open, nope, nope. Type literally open bracket, like just like the button. Um, that's not a bracket, that's a parenthesis. It looks just like the format below. It's the greater than symbol. Yes, and now type form, close bracket. Nope, that's not. Yep, that's a close bracket. And then put the same thing at the very end of the last line. Put the same thing in the last line. No, the line below that. The line below button. The line, no, not that's the last line of the documents below the last button. Notice how that last line says button. Go down one more line. Go down one more line. Go down one more line. So go, yes, hit enter. Very good. Now do that again, but now put a slash before the form. Put a slash before that word form. Nope. Put a slash before. Nope. Slash. Like a forward slash. Yes. And now close the bracket. Go ahead and save that. And now save it as, again, do the same thing. Yes, as all page 2 now. Page 2 is the name of this file. Page 2.html. Go ahead and save it. And now the code, go ahead and save it. And now the code has an issue. Don't forget the action. The action has to be set for the form. So go back to the form, that first form element, go inside of the first form tag at the very top. So that's called the form tag. Yes. Go to the end of the tag. Go inside of the bracket. Put a space. And write action equals. And then in double quotes, type http://google.com. TTP, not, yeah. ://google.com. Very good. Double quote. End it with the double quote. Now save that. And now run that. Now that's page 2. You can probably open up the same web browser and just change the address from 2 to 1, from 1 to 2, and then it should just take you to page 2 instead. So go ahead and go open to make it simple. Just go back to where you saved it, which is in documents. Go to the documents folder again. Okay, notice that you see page 2. It's already there for it. Yeah, scroll down. There's page 2. Double click on it to run it. Very good. Now it's running page 2. Now click on the button. Very good. So that's how it's supposed to work. It takes you to google.com. So fantastic. Okay. Go ahead and stop sharing your screen. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and I'll take over the host again. Now let me share my screen. Okay, very good. So like I mentioned before, so now we see that we can do the exact same thing, but now we're using a form. So the way we're using a form is we're setting the action attribute of the form. We're taking advantage of the fact that by default, a button will try to submit a form. So if we set the action attribute of the form to change the page address, then we've essentially created a link also that way. So we've created a link by just basically using a form, a very basic form. And then whenever we click on the button inside of the form, it tries to submit the form. And when it tries to do that, it executes the action. It runs the action of the form, which is to go to a new web page. So that's very cool. So that's another way of creating an HTML or basically a link. So very good. Okay. Now we'll look at let's go ahead and now let's see if we can jump back to not a website, but let's see if we can actually jump to another document inside of our machine. So I want everyone to now, because you have two files, one is called page1.html and the other is called page2.html. Inside of that second form, change the code, change the action from google.com to page1.html. And let's see what happens. So Kumi, go ahead and share your screen again. Let me make you the host. Sorry, let me make you the host first. Yes, yes, it is. Let me make you the host real quick. Kumi said this is basically coding. Yes, it essentially is. HTML is a form of coding. All right, go ahead and share your screen. Okay, that's fine. It's because you haven't been, following. Um, that's because this is your first time actually running through. That's why it's so important to practice what we've been doing. Because if you don't practice it, it's very hard to just like watch the videos and understand. HTML is very hands-on. You have to be using it in order to know what's going on. Okay, so no, close this, open the last document you had. Open the last document you had, open. Yeah, close that, close this, yeah. Yep, close that. You don't need to make a new document. Close that. Don't save it. Open the last document we had. So go to your documents folder. And now go to page2.html, refresh, because it's not showing. Refresh. Refresh is at the top of the window. That circle? No, the circle, no, just open up a new document folder. That's fine. Close that and open up a new document so you'll see the new one. Yeah. So open up documents. Oh, open up documents. It's already open. Okay, very good. Now you see page 2. Right click on page 2 to open it. Nope. Right click on it to open it in Notepad. Right click on it, open with Notepad. Yeah, edit in Notepad. There you go. Very good. Now change the action. The action, I want you to change it to page1.html. The action, notice how the action says google.com. Yes, change that action. Nope, leave it in double quotes. Just change the actual text inside of it to page1.html. No. Inside of the double quotes, change google.com. Change all of that, google.com. Go change the forward slash the HTTP also. Keep changing. Now type page1.html. Very good. So basically what we're doing is we're setting the action to that original file. So we want the form to take us to the original file. Let's see if it works. Save that. And now run it. Go back to Google Chrome. Google Chrome should already be open. You can close that out. Close that out. Go back to your page 2 file, which should already be open still in Google Chrome. So on your machine, you opened it in Google Chrome. So it should still be open. to make things easy for you. You see it, there it is, page 2.html. Go ahead and click on that to open it. Very good. So refresh to reload it. Now click on I am a button. Notice how it took you to page 1.html. Go to your page 2. Let's make it easier to read. So go to page 2, the code, go to the code. Open the code. And now instead of saying I am a button, say I am a form button, because it's really a button inside of a form. I am a form button. Very good. Save that. Now let's run the code again. Go to Google Chrome. There it is. There's page 2. Open page 2. Now refresh. So now click on the button. It takes you back to page 1, where it just says I am a button, where it's just a regular button in page 1. Click on go back now. Click on the back arrow to go back to page 2. So every time you click on the button, it takes you back to page 1. So not only are you able to link to a web page, you're able to link in between documents. That's because those documents are in the same folder. As long as the documents are in the same folder, you can link back and forth between them by just giving the name of the file. Okay, very good. Go ahead and stop sharing your screen. I'll make myself the host again. Very good. Good job. So let me share my screen. So we can jump back and forth between pages in the same folder just by using the file name. So if your other file was not in the same folder, you would need to specify the path of the file in order to jump to it. But because everything is inside the same folder, we can just jump to it by using the name only. So that's very nice. So now we saw that we can create a link basically using a form or using a button. Okay, now let's look at the normal way in HTML that most people create links. So in HTML, the two most common ways to change the address of a page is, you can use the button like we just saw, the button element, but the most common way is to use what's called a link element. So you probably already know what this is. Let's now look at how it's done in HTML. So if we create a simple link, we use what's called the A element in HTML, as is shown on this slide. So a link is one of the most basic elements in HTML. That's why the name of the element is A, instead of like link or like page, as you would probably expect. The name of the element is just A, the letter A. Many people will call the link element the A element because it's used so often. It's one of the most basic elements in HTML. So let's go ahead and make a new file. This time, let's call it page3.html. And now I want you to enter the code on this slide into the file and then run it and tell me what happens. So, and again, href, the href inside of the element, it stands for hypertext reference. So if you're just wondering what that means anyway. So go ahead and run this code in a new file called page3.html and tell me what you see. Kumi, go ahead and share your screen again. Well, actually, for the sake of time, let me just do it myself. But go ahead and follow along on your machine. Make sure you're able to do it. Let me just, for the sake of time, let me just run it. So here's the code. In order to do it, and then you just make a simple A. The link element is the most basic element in HTML. To make a link, you just have to have an A. So I'll just start off by doing the open and closing tag. And then inside the first tag, actually, let me give my link a name first. I'm going to call it I am a link. That'll be the name of the link, is just I am a link. And then I'm going to give the A opening tag an attribute of href equals, and then I'll just, again, go to google.com. Nope. //google.com. So I'll go ahead and save that. So let me go ahead and run that in a web browser. So let me refresh. And you can see that this is what it generates. So it just generates a single text, and it says, I am a link. So this is what a normal link looks like in HTML. So Um, if you do everything correctly, it should look like this. And notice that the text is purple right now because I already clicked on it. Whenever you click on a link by default, the color will change to purple every time after that. So in the beginning, before you click on the link, the color is blue. And I can show you that by maybe doing this. Let me save it as input2.html. And then let me make it a new file. Let me save that. And let me go to input2.html. So that's strange. It should be blue. Um, I wonder why it's not blue. I wonder if that's because um, I already went to this web page. Let me try another web page. Notice it changed back to blue. That's because I already went to google.com. As soon as I changed it to yahoo.com, the text color changes to blue. So by default, um, a link will always have a color that it's blue. The text will always be blue, and then the actual text itself will be underlined. And as soon as you go to that web page, every time after that, it's like the web browser will remember that, oh, you've already gone to google.com. So now whenever you look at the same link, it's going to be purple. That indicates to you that, oh, you've already been to this web page before. So all of that is included in the basic standard behavior of a link element. But that's why people like to use links a lot instead of a button, because you get all of that by just using a link. It changes color to let you know you've been there before, and it underlines it, and then it makes it blue. So it's very easy to know that it's a link to a new page. That's a standard way of creating a link in HTML. So again, if you click on this, it takes us to yahoo.com. Very good. So now let's go ahead and I want to show you that you can get rid of this styling if you, for some reason, notice, by the way, it changed back to purple because we already went to yahoo.com now. If we go back to google.com, it'll still say purple because we've still been to google.com. Let me save that. Let me refresh it. Notice it's still purple because the web browser remembers that we've been to google.com before. That's why it's still purple, even though we've changed it. Anyway, so if we want to get rid of this styling, all we have to do is, let me just go back to the slides. So just in case, we'll just quickly discuss how you get rid of that style. So if you want to get rid of the style, all you have to do is add a style attribute that says text decoration, none. That will get rid of the underline. And then if you want to get rid of the color, everyone should remember how to do that. You just add another attribute that says color unset. So you add a style attribute, and then the style specification is going to be text decoration none, color unset. That's how you get rid of all the styling of the link, just in case you wanted to try that out. So on your own time, I encourage you to try this out so you can see if you can make the text just look like regular text, but it's still going to function like a link. For the sake of time, we won't go ahead and do that. We'll move on to the next part. So finally, I want everyone to go ahead and do this now. Make page3.html, leave it alone, but just change the href instead of google.com, change it to page1.html, and then change the actual name of the link to page one link, and then add the form button that we did last time. So add that onto the same page, and then call that page two link. Give the name of the button page two link, and then change the action to page two.html. So let me just quickly code that up and show everyone. So on my end, I don't have page one and page two. I have input two and then input and then just input. So that's what I'll do. I'll call this, I think I called the file 330 underscore inputs. That's the name of my file, .html. And then right below that, I want to make this page one link. And then right underneath that, I want to go ahead and do the form. And inside the form, I want to do a button. And inside that first button, I want to, I don't want to do anything inside the button, actually. I just want to call it page 2. And I don't even need to have a space like that. But just to make it simple, I'll go ahead and leave that alone. And then for the form, I want the action to be page 2, or in my case, it's going to be 3.30 input, 2.html. So this will allow me to jump back and forth between the pages if I save it. Now let me go ahead and run that. So here's my my tech. As you can see, this is what you should get. And when I click on page 1, it takes me to page 1. And then when I go back and I click on page 2, it takes me to page 2.html, which is the new page that I just made. So if I click on the first link, it takes me to the original page. And then if I click on the second page, it takes me back to the same page. So in your case, it'll take you to page 2.html. So very good. So we can have multiple links on the same page. And the reason why the second button appears on a new line is because it's inside of a form. If you want it to appear side by side, we have to just get rid of the form. Let me just show you really quickly. So if we want it to appear side by side, we just, because by default, whenever we create a form, the form will always make a new line. So if we don't want that new line to be there, we'll instead just use a regular button, and we'll set the on-click instead. And then we'll say location dot href equals what is it? 330 2. So if I save that, now it's going to be on the same line. And the reason it's on the same line is again, because we're using a button instead of a form. So very good. So now it should have the same behavior. It takes us to the same page, and then page 1 takes us to the previous page. Very good. Okay, so that's how you have 2 links on the same page. You can have multiple links on the same page by just obviously duplicating this. And then let's just call this page, it's going to be the same. We'll save it, and then if we run it, notice it just stacks, it's on the same line. So we can, that's how we create multiple pages or multiple links on the same page. Okay. Now let's go ahead and okay, yeah, that's what it looks like. Very good. So, okay, now let's go ahead and go back to really quickly visit feedback loops. We're running short on time, but I'll try to be fast. So last time we introduced a very big concept of feedback loops. We discussed how loops in a computer program or an algorithm is just a feedback loop, and it's similar to other feedback loops you see in nature. So we discussed how a video feedback loop, which is very common, most people have seen that before, especially if you use Zoom, OBS, Adobe Premiere. You know what a video feedback loop, everyone knows what a video feedback loop looks like. And then does anyone remember what we said the definition of a feedback loop is? What is the definition, again, of a feedback loop? Can anyone tell me again what that is? What is the definition of a feedback loop? Okay, for the sake of time, I'll just go ahead and say, so a feedback loop is any process in which the output of something is used to feed the input of the same thing. So the output is feeding the input of the same thing. That's a feedback loop. So in a camera, in this case, a camera is an input device, by the way, because it takes input signals from the real world and puts it into the computer. So the camera on your laptop, it's called an input device because it takes signals from the real world and puts them into the computer, into the machine. And then the monitor, the screen, is called an output device because it takes signals from inside the machine and then puts them out into the real world. So the camera is an input device, the display or the monitor is an output device. So in the case of a video loop, we have the same program that is showing us what the camera sees. Or the program is showing us what the camera sees. So if we point the camera at the display, then we've created a feedback loop because now the camera is inputting information that is now the display, and the display is the output of the camera. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone. The camera is the input and the display is the output. So if we point the camera at the display, we're creating a feedback loop because the camera is inputting the display, which outputs the camera. And then that inputs the display, which outputs the camera. And that inputs the display that outputs the camera, and so on and so forth. That's what we get, why we get that phenomenon of like the infinity, because that's how we create a feedback loop. Anytime the output again, that is anytime the output of something is used to feed the input of the same thing. Okay, very good. And once we know the physics of what's going on in a feedback loop, I think it's going to be much easier to understand how a feedback loop is working in a computer program. So let's look at a computer program loop now. So again, we saw this last time. We can create a feedback loop in a computer, in a program like in code like HTML, by setting the variable, by setting any variable equal to itself. So everyone in mathematics, we'll talk quickly about what a variable is. In mathematics, everyone in here should know that a variable is just a placeholder for something. And in computing, it has the exact same meaning. It's just like it functions as a placeholder for something. But in computing, a variable is also a physical location. It's like a physical storage location on the hard drive or on the RAM of the machine. So whenever we set a variable in a computer, we're actually setting a storage location on the machine. And we're setting that storage location, if we're setting the variable equal to itself, we're setting the storage location equal to itself. So what that means is when the machine tries to check that location on the hard drive or on the RAM, it's going to recheck that location because the location is set to itself. So whenever it checks the location, it has to recheck the location because the location is pointing back to itself. And so it keeps checking the location again. And if we're not careful, a computer can actually very easily get stuck in that location, which causes the machine to freeze or crash. So that's why loops are very powerful and very dangerous at the same time. If you don't write a loop the right way, you can easily crash the system and possibly lose your data. So if we want to create a loop in a computer, again, we'll usually set a variable equal to itself, which means we're setting a memory location on the machine equal to itself. Once we do that, every time we check that location in the machine, the computer will recheck that location again, and then recheck that location again until a certain condition is met. So if we're good at programming, then we'll choose a good condition and the machine will not crash. So yes, we don't want the machine to crash. Now, let's go ahead and test that out. This is very similar to what we did last time. We saw in HTML that we can create a simple loop by setting a variable or setting the value of an inputs field in a form equal to itself. Here's an example of that. So in this code, you can see that we're using the onClick attribute to set the count field equal to itself. The count field is the first input. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like. So let's go ahead and code this up. For the sake of time, I'll go ahead and code it up. I want everyone to be practicing also, but to make things go quickly, I'll go ahead and code this up. So here is the code. Let me make it large so everyone can see. So all we're doing is we just have a form. And then we have an input. And we'll give the input a name equals that's equal to count, so we can refer back to it easily. And we don't even need to give it a value for now. And then we'll create another input. And then we'll make this input a button. Or for the sake of, yeah, I'll just follow exactly what the slide says. So, and then we'll make the value of this equal to go. So it says go. And then lastly, we'll create the onClick attribute of that. We'll give that input an onClick attribute of And then we'll use that onClick attribute to create our loop. So our loop is going to just be count. We'll use the name of the field, count.value. We'll get the value, and then we're going to set that equal to itself, that value. So that's our feedback loop. Let's go ahead and look at that, see what that looks like in when we run it. We'll refresh the page. So there's our input, there's our code. So if we click on go, notice it doesn't do anything. And nothing is happening because all we've done is just create a feedback loop. We're not using the feedback loop to actually change anything. So the way we use the feedback loop to change something is by adding something to the end of the output. So we talked about that last time. Let's see what that means. So when we want to add something to the end of the output, we'll do something like this. Notice we just have a +1 at the end of this, on click. So almost the exact same as it was last time, but now we just added a +1. So now when we run this code, what we're telling the machine to do is check this memory location every time we click on the button, but also add 1. Every time you check the memory location, add a 1. So what you should see is a 1 added every time we click on the button. And we already saw this last time. Let's just go ahead and do it again. So here's the, or let me modify the code first. So here, we'll just change the value. We'll just add +1 at the end. Oop, +1. And now we'll save that. And now if we rerun the code, we'll see that every time we click on go, it adds a 1 to the page. So that's how we've created a simple feedback loop in HTML. Now let's go ahead and let's see how we can do some other stuff. So that's how we create a simple feedback loop. Now, let's try to notice how we talked about last time, how it's adding text. It's treating the number like it's text. How do we get it to treat the number like it's an actual number? So if we want the text to be treated as a number, we have to use a function called parseInt. And we talked about functions, I think, 2 weeks ago. So the function parseInt is going to convert the text into an integer. And hopefully everyone remembers from math class that an integer is just a whole number, except it can have negative values also. So as long as we parse that first part into a number, what the browser will do is it's going to treat the whole thing like it's a number. So it's going to assume that the plus symbol is now like a mathematical plus symbol, not in because the plus symbol in math or in HTML can actually do 2 things. The plus symbol can add a string, and it also can add numbers together. So the machine, the web browser, doesn't know which plus symbol you mean, but if you tell it the first part of the output is a number, it will automatically assume the plus symbol should act like a mathematical plus symbol, not like to join 2 strings together or 2 pieces of text together. So that's how the machine will try and know what you mean when you use the plus symbol, is if you set the first output to be a number. So here we're going to do that by using the parseInt function. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like in code. So here, all we're going to do is change the first, that second count to a number by using parseInt. And the parseInt, the I is always capitalized. So the I in parseInt is always capitalized. And then we want to just have the function only apply to the first value. And then let's space this out to make it easy to read. So we're applying the parseInt function on that first value. Let's go ahead and save it. Now let's rerun the code. Let's see what it does now. So here's the code. Let's rerun it. Okay, it tells us no, not a number. Okay, that's because the initial number is blank. Let's give the initial value 0. Okay, now it's initial 0, and every time we add a 1, let's see what it does. Very good. So now you can see that it's actually doing a mathematical addition every time we click on it, because the initial number is 0. Let me refresh again, and then we're adding 1 to it. We're adding the number 1. It wasn't working last time because initially it was a blank. in the blank, you can't add a 1 to blank. There's no such thing in math as like 1 plus blank. But there is a such thing as 1 plus 0. So that's why it takes in, now that we've told it to treat the first input as a number, it's now able to interpret that plus symbol as a mathematical plus symbol. And now it adds a number to each value. Okay, very good. So that's how we create a simple counter in HTML using a loop. And I want you to go ahead and when you do that on your own, I want you to call that document counts.html. So so you see something again that looks like this. You can use whatever number you want as the beginning number. And then every time you click on the button, it should add a 1 to the number that's already there. And that's basically a simple counter that you've just created in HTML. Counters are used a lot in computer programming. We're going to use them a lot. In fact, because loops and a counter are used so much in computer programming, you're going to see loops and counters all the time. There's actually a shortcut for creating a variable and setting it equal to itself, and then adding 1 at the end. So notice in this slide, there's a lot. We have a lot less code, and we've replaced the count equals count plus 1. We've replaced it with just the 2 plus symbols. These 2 plus symbols are replacing all of that text that we had before. So just by having plus plus, that's a very, very shortcut of telling the machine, add something to itself every time. So it's a very, very nice shorthand of creating a simple counting loop that's used very often in computer programming. So let me go ahead and show you that's exactly what it does. Let me bring up my code. So here I can get rid of all of this. Instead of having all this code, I can get rid of all of that. And all I need to actually do is just do plus plus. And if I save that, that's a shortcut for telling the machine to set itself equal to itself and then add 1 every time. So let me go ahead and run that to show you. Again, here we go. If I refresh, it starts at 0. And then if I click on 1, and it works the exact same way. So count.value plus plus is a very, very short way of doing the long version of saying count equals count.value plus 1. This is a very, very shorthand. Okay, very good. We can also, by the way, we can also do count plus equals 1. That's also a shorthand. But if we use that shorthand, let's see what happens. Let's go ahead and test that shorthand really quickly. If we do plus equals 1, which is also a shorthand, let's see what happens. Oh, let me make sure I refresh. Oh, let me make sure I save. So if I save this and I refresh, notice it goes back to what it was doing in the beginning. It's just adding, assuming that it means text. It's adding the text 1. That's because we're not parsing it to an integer, because when we use this shortcut, we're not able to control the numerical type of the first input. So that's why it's often more convenient to just do this, to just do the plus plus. And that way it automatically will treat it as a number for us. Okay, very good. All right, I think that takes us to assignment 6. So for assignment 6, we've already basically done it. Last class, you just have to modify this. I want you to create a document, and then I want you to have your name at the very top of the document, and I want you to create a simple counter. So it should show your name at the very top, and then you should have an input field that's called number of clicks, or something, similar. You can name it whatever you want. I want it to be called number of clicks or something like that. And then you should have a button called count or go. And every time you click on the button, it should add 1 to the value of the input field. So this is due by next Saturday. It should just count the number of clicks. Now you should know how to do a counter based on what we just discussed today. So go ahead and make this counter in HTML and then submit this to your portal by next Saturday at noon. And again, thank you to everyone who's doing these assignments. These assignments will build your skills. And before you know it, you'll be doing very advanced. This is already kind of advanced. Most people who know HTML probably don't even know how to do this, because they're just used to using like JavaScript or whatever like that. You're doing all of this in just plain HTML, and this is pretty advanced. So anyway, thank you for everyone who's doing these assignments. This is very, very useful, and it's going to be very useful to you, not only for Chosen Generation, but in any work you do outside of church. So, okay, very good. We'll end class here. So have a good night, and the recording will be up on the in your portal by Monday. If it's not, just remind me. I'll try to have it up by Monday. Have a good night.